Hey guys, I can't believe how fast this week went. It's already Wednesday again. That is crazy. I hope you all are getting back into the swing of things. I'm not going to lie, it's a lot harder than I thought to get back into a weekly routine and like going to school every day. That's okay. I hope you guys are adjusting better than I am. I just got my coffee. And I'm dreaming about Disney World. That's my like one of my favorite places to go. In my questions, I ask you where, if you could travel anywhere, where would it be? Like if you could take a trip. I'm just curious. I like Disney World. I like to go back to that innocent time. But that's why I like it. But I also like to go to state parks and go camping and stuff like that. So let me know. I just want to get to know you. So now you know one of my favorite places is Disney World. So last week we talked about creation. We talked about how God created the whole world with his voice, right? And then we talked about how he created Adam and Eve, and he created man, and everything else he created was good, but Adam was very good. Like he really is partial to man. So that's the big story. That's the story of how God created the world, and that's, but within that story, we talk about Adam and Eve and how they sinned. They created the first sin by eating the apple, and that was not good. But God loved them in it anyway. So what you can take away from that is that they created sin in a sense. Like they brought it into existence. So you can't tell me that there's anything that you can do that would make God walk away from you. There's nothing you can do. He will always be there for you, and he will always love you. You just have to love him back. Then we talked about Noah and the flood, and we talked about how the world was a mess, and he's like, wow, like everybody's gotten really evil, and I'm gonna flood the world. So he is gonna flood the world. But he sees Noah in the whole world. He sees this one guy that is still following him and is still trying to do his best in a world that's pretty chaotic. So he says, Noah, build an ark. Sounds crazy, but I want you to build an ark. And not only do I want you to build an ark, you have to build an ark that is big enough to fit every kind of animal. So he builds the ark and he saves Noah. And then when it's all said and done, he sends a rainbow and makes a covenant, not only with Noah, but for all people, including us, that he will never flood the earth again. And he gave us a rainbow as a reminder. And a covenant is a really big promise. God makes a couple of covenants with us. But also in that big story, we see that he saw Noah. So if he can see Noah in the whole world, he sees you. He knows you, and he knows where your heart is. So don't ever think that there's too many people out there or that you're not important enough, because God sees you. Okay, so that was last week. Before we start on this week, I want to pray. And I know praying is a hard thing. A lot of people don't know how to do it, which is fine. But let me tell you that you can't screw it up. Like you can't screw up praying. I fall asleep while I'm praying sometimes. I think about my grocery list while I'm praying sometimes. So you can't mess up praying, just so you know that. But I also know it's kind of stressful for some people. So I'm going to teach you a way that I like to pray. It's called the ACTS. ACTS style of prayer. So first, we do some adoration. That is when we give God praise and glory and honor, and let him know that we know he is Lord over all. Okay, so I'm going to start that off. And this is how I would start that. Dear God, maker of heaven and earth, Father of all creation, maker of my soul, creator of my being. Okay, and you can go more into it. The next thing we do is the C. So it's called the confession. It's dealing with our sins. So we kind of confess where we mess up. So, Lord, we are not a perfect people. I know I, for one, have let the distractions of my life and the busyness of my present world to distract me and pull me away from you, Lord. And for that, I'm sorry. So that's when you can go into that. And just talk about where you kind of fallen short. And it's not like he doesn't know. He sees everything you do. But it's just telling him, acknowledging it and saying out loud, because sometimes that's just for you. Sometimes it feels a lot better, even if you're just praying, just to say it. And it kind of takes a weight off your shoulders. So Thanksgiving, this is when we tell God everything we're grateful for, okay? This part I love. Dear God, I'm so thankful for the people in my life, my family and my friends. I thank you so much for my church community. I thank you for the people hearing this prayer and the people that can be blessed by this prayer, Lord. I thank you for the joy that you bring me in small moments, whether it just be the sunshine or my dogs waking me up in the morning. And I just thank you for giving me a new day, Lord. And yeah, I almost went on. I can't do that. So that's just when you say all the things you're grateful for. And it can be simple things like, I'm just thankful you woke me up this morning. I'm thankful that the sun is shining. I'm thankful that I passed my math test. I don't know. You just let them know what you're grateful for. And the last one is supplication. So this is when you start to pray for the needs of others. This is also like my favorite way to worship, because I feel like I'm doing something. Like I feel like I might have a little bit of control. I guess I don't, but I'm putting it over into God's hands. So then you would end with, dear Lord, I pray for these kids, Lord. We are dealing with very uncertain times, Lord, and it can be a little scary and overwhelming, Lord. I pray you calm their hearts if they are nervous, Lord. I pray you give them security and let them know that you are bigger than anything that's out there. And I just pray that you bless them and you keep them all safe. Okay, so that's how I pray. Yeah, and it seems to work. It puts me in a good spot. I like praising God first, because then I remember how big he is. I like doing my confessions next, because then it keeps me humble. And then doing all the things I'm thankful for reminds me of my life and how good it is. And then praying for others is really huge. And I want you to know, if you're watching this and you do have something you want prayer for, you can let me know. You can either email me or get a hold of me any which way, and I will pray for you. And I will keep it confidential. Like I won't tell anybody unless you're in danger. then I gotta tell somebody because, I care about you and I don't want you to go through that. Okay. So we have reached a big chunk and I only have like 10 minutes to tell you about the most exciting part of the Bible, I think. I don't know. I really dig the Old Testament. I think it's so full of stories and just action, and I don't know. I really like it. Some people like Psalms, and I dig Psalms, but I like just reading the action and adventure, and how there's like a hero and a villain, and they're trying to get out of it, and are they gonna win? And I'm a nerd. Anyway, okay, so now we are with Abraham. A lot happens before that. There's a whole Adam and Eve descendants, but one of them is Abraham. And God says to Abraham, I'm going to make a covenant with you. I want to make you a covenant, another promise. I'm going to make you a great nation. Okay? He says that to Abraham. And Abraham already kind of like has a pretty cushy life. Like he's doing pretty good for himself. So for him to leave that life to go follow what God has promised him is kind of a big deal and a big act of faith. Just to leave, he went with his nephew named Lot, and they just kind of wandered for a little while. Lot has its own story. I can't get into it because I'm going to run out of time, but there's another subplot in there that's really awesome, and you should check it out and read about it. But right now we're focusing on Abraham. So Abraham went through all this. He moved his family and his people into this land that he didn't know. So he's there, and he's 99 years old. And his wife is also in her 90s. And God says, Abraham, look up in the sky. I'm going to make your descendants as many as the stars in the heavens. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah. And Abraham's like, well, I'm kind of old, so how's that going to work? God's like, trust me. I mean, obviously, he says a lot more than that, but the basic theme is trust me. And so he tries to, and but his wife Sarah is like, I'm too old, so I'm going to go a step ahead, and Abraham is going to have a baby with our servant Hagar, and that's how that's going to roll, because obviously God doesn't know what he's talking about. So Hagar has a baby named Ishmael. Ishmael also has quite his own subplot story that we can't get into. But boy, he literally is declared like a wild donkey. So that's a whole nother thing. But God even took care of that. Even though Sarah stepped out of her bounds, and God's like, that is not what I meant. You gotta actually trust what I say. Like, don't think you know what I say. I said, you will have descendants. Trust me. Like, okay. So then Sarah does get pregnant. And Sarah has Isaac. And Isaac, so they have a kid. It's great. But God has really big plans for Abram. Okay. He's supposed to be a leader of a new nation, right? So he tells Abram to bring Isaac up to this mountain and that he has to be sacrificed. I have kids. I have 4 kids. I don't think I'd do that. I mean, yeah, no. That would be hard. Any of you have like maybe pets? Could you imagine like sending your pet? But he doesn't. That's how much this guy trusts God. So he goes up and he goes on the mountain. Isaac is like, we're building this sacrificial fire. Where's the lamb? And Abraham's like, just trust me. And right at the last second, God says, stop. Do not harm him. You have shown me that you fear God. Now, we always say, like, to fear God, but the fear of God means that it's not like you're scared, like you're like I'm scared of roller coasters. It's not that kind of fear. It's a different kind. It's the fear of not wanting to stray away from him. It's the fear of going against what you believe and what's in your heart, because we actually have kind of sinful hearts. Okay, it's going against what our heart says sometimes and going to what God says, even if that alone is scary. So he was going to sacrifice his son, and because that's what God said, and God's story is always best. So that is, so God was like, thank you. You are free to run the nation. Now, God already knew that he was going to do that. But sometimes God tests us just so that we can believe in ourselves. Okay? God already knows where Abraham's heart is. He already knew about that. But the thing is, he wanted Abraham to see it. And sometimes we need tests like that. Okay. So that's the big testing of Abraham, and Abraham goes on, and there's another story about another land, and it's a great story. Sodom and Gomorrah. Anyway, so look that up, read it. It's a great story. But right now we're talking about like how he builds a nation. That's our big story, and how God built a nation. Okay. So then Isaac grows up. Abraham dies at the age of 175. He has some more kids. He only had one with Sarah, and Sarah died. And then he got remarried, and then he had more kids with them. But Isaac was the firstborn. So he grows up, and we follow his story. He marries Rebecca. And after 20 years of marriage, they finally have not one, but 2 babies. Okay? Now, so Rebecca is about to give birth. This is Genesis 25:24. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping on Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebecca gave birth to them. Okay, so that kind of tells you what Isaac and Esau's personalities were straight from the get-go. Esau was this manly man hunter guy, but he was also Isaac's favorite, and he was the firstborn. Jacob was kind of more of a homebody, and he was a mama's boy, but he really craved wanting that honor, wanting that birthright. So he wanted to be first, which is why he was grasping his brother's heels even at the time of his birth. So Isaac's getting older, and it comes time to pass the birthright on. And Jacob was making this soup, and Esau comes in, and he's like famished. He's so hungry, and he's like, "Oh, give me some of that stew you just made." And Jacob was like, "Give me your birthright, and then I'll give you something to eat." And he's like, "I'm famished. What good is a birthright if I'm dead?" So he agrees to give over the birthright to Jacob and gives him soup. But Isaac, that really doesn't mean a whole lot because Isaac still has to pass the birthright on. So Isaac gets really sick, and Rebecca had this plan because she heard that Jacob wanted the birthright. So she's like, I'm gonna give my boy the birthright. So they trick Isaac because he's old and he's handsy. So they put goat hair, like a goat pelt, on his arms. That's how hairy this guy's arms were. A whole goat pelt. And so Isaac ends up giving the blessing to Jacob before he dies. Well, Esau comes in and sees what is happening, and he's so mad he threatens to kill his brother. And it was bad. Like, he was so mad that Rebecca sent Jacob away so that he would be safe from his brother. And after 20 years, Jacob finally said, I really want to see my brother. Really scared, but he has this family of his own now, and he has kids, and he's done well for himself, and he wants to share it with his brother. He misses like his family, his roots. So he sent a message out to Esau, and the servant that brought the message said, yeah, so Esau is coming, and he's bringing 400 men with him. So instantly Jacob's thinking, oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me. Like, he's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill my whole family. Like, he's gonna start a war. And he's really stressed. So he spent the whole night praying. And then he's like, oh, I have an idea. I'm gonna show him how much favor I have with him. So he sent 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 20 emus, 20 rams, and 30 female camels. But he sent them like in shifts, so that when these people came with these big herds and met Esau, he'd be like, where are you going? Why do you have so many animals? He's like, oh, I'm looking for my lord Esau, and it's you, and these are a blessing from your brother Jacob. So he wanted him to keep on going on finding these, so that he'd be impressed, and like Esau would think that Jacob was like really, really blessing him. So after that, Jacob went to sleep. And that night he woke up and he saw a man, and he wrestled. And he wrestled with this man, this no-name man. And finally, at the end of the night, the man touched Jacob's hip and slid it out of its socket. And Jacob said to the man, who are you? Hold on, I'm gonna read it. That night, Jacob, this is Genesis 32:22. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and 11 sons, and crossed over. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over his possessions, so Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, let me go, for it is daybreak. But Jacob replied, I will not let you go until you bless me. And the man asked him, what is your name? Jacob, he answered. And the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and the humans and have overcome. Jacob said, please tell me your name. But the man replied, why do you ask my name? And then blessed him there. So God came down to him and said, you've wrestled with me, you've wrestled with your family, you've come around, you're blessed. So then after that, Jacob sees Esau coming up. And Esau comes running up and is like, embraces him and is like, my brother, I've missed you. And he's like, by the way, what were all those animals about? And he's like, I wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry. And I wanted to repay you by giving you all those camels and animals. And he says, like, no, I'm doing good myself. Like, I just want to be with you and your family. So in the end, the brothers came together. Even after leaving, thinking Esau wanted to kill him, their relationship was redeemed. And it's that's just a cool story about how even in it all, relationships can be redeemed, hearts can be mended. It may take a while, but God was also in it. God struggled with Jacob, and he had to be in the midst of it as well. So that's our bigger story. And they go on to make like a big nation. But yeah. So as you can see, it took a really long time to tell you. But it's an exciting story. I like it. But just keep in mind that God heals all things. He can heal all things. And sometimes he doesn't, but his plan is bigger than ours. Okay? No, I'm praying for you. No, I'm thinking about you, and I cannot wait until we can see each other again. Have a great week.